Hello everyone. Welcome to this webinar, first webinar of the Voice of Code community. Um, this webinar is going to be about technical writing. But before we start, let's start with introducing ourselves. I'm Çetin Khan Taşkıngenç. I'm a student from Turkey, and I'm currently management lead of the Voice of Code community, and I'm a Beta Microsoft Learn student ambassador. I've been with the community for over a year. And Sanya, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Sanya and I am a Gold Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador. And I'm currently working at the University of Texas at Austin as a summer research intern. And I love creating content. I have over 140,000 content views so far. And I've worked with over five plus agencies, five plus corporate firms as a technical writer. Currently, I'm also contributing towards curating content at NumPy, which is a Python library. And I'm so glad to be here. I'm also the editorial and review lead for Voice of Code. And I think Voice of Code is an amazing venture that really helps people, gather more attention towards technical writing.
Yeah, talking about Voice of Code, if you don't know what Voice of Code is, it's a non-profit platform managed by us, the Microsoft Learn student ambassadors. The platform mostly focuses on technical writing, technical documentation, blogging, and etc. And we have a lot of leads which specialize in many areas to help you improve your technical writing abilities. Um, we also mentioned the ambassadors program, the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors program. I even wear a T-shirt here. So the ambassadors program is basically Microsoft's global student program. There are thousands of students who are in the program. In this program, it's kind of like Microsoft mentors you. You do not work for Microsoft, but you produce events in your campuses to promote Microsoft technologies, and Microsoft awards you with swags as well and some recognition. And it's a great community with thousands of highly skilled students, and it's an amazing community. If you want to be part of the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors community, you can uh, just search Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors, submit your information to be part of the community if you get selected. And if you want to join Voice of Code specifically, you need, if you want to, for example, become a lead, you especially need to become a Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador as well. If you want to become a lead, you can follow our socials in LinkedIn, here at YouTube and Twitter, and etc. You can reach out to me, Sheena. She is also a management lead, or Sanya, any of the community members, and we'll make you fill out a form, and you might be on the next lead of Voice of Code platform. Awesome. So we talked about a lot of keywords. Uh, Let me briefly mention why we wanted to host this session together with Sanya. Um, so technical writing and technical documentation, I think, is a highly sought after skill and a great skill. I'm not as skilled in technical writing as Sanya. That's why I asked her to host this event. I think technical writing is one of the best ways for you to build a social media presence, and the social media presence comes in handy when you're beginning in your career search. And I mentioned that it's a highly sought after and impressive skill because it can translate into many different areas. Like, and if you want to write a paper, if you want to be an academia, if you want to join academia, well, it can be helpful when writing a paper. If you are a software developer, when you're writing a technical documentation, this skill comes in really handy. If you're like a developer advocate, writing blogs, writing technical content online can be a really important skill. So what do you think about this, Sanya?
Absolutely. So I think I should really start talking more about technical writing now. Let me just delve into my slides so as to give people more perspective on technical writing. So just one moment, I'm sharing my screen now.
Yeah, awesome.
Can
Uh,
you see my screen?
Let me put your screen. Yes, we can see your screen at the moment.
Okay, awesome. Let me just start sharing it. Just 1 second.
Before you begin, I also want to mention if you have any questions, you can write them in the comments. And after Sanya finishes her presentation, we can answer those questions as well. Just wanted to mention it.
Obviously, I would love to take up any questions that any of you have regarding technical writing, and I would be more than happy to help you out in every way possible. You can connect with me here, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any doubts regarding technical writing. So, let me just begin with the presentation now.
Okay.
So, I'm Sanya. I am a Gold Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador, and currently I'm creating documentation for NumPy. I've also worked with multiple firms and curated different types of documentation, curated different types of tech content over my years. And I'm really passionate about technical writing. And I would love to entice more people to the profession and would like to draw more traffic towards this profession because it actually deserves more than people know about. So let me just start talking more about it. So before we actually delve into the specifics of technical writing, I think it's extremely mandatory for us to know what technical writing is. So technical writing is all about creating specialized niche content for a product or service that can be easily digested or easily comprehended by the people. So if you don't understand what I mean, so let's just take an example of random Lego blocks. So all of us have played with Lego blocks over the years, right? And you can think of these Lego blocks to depict random technical jargon, random technical, complex technical thoughts that you have harbored and which you want to present in an easily comprehensive way so that people who do not have prior technical knowledge, who are laymen in terms of technology, can also understand them and try to use the product or service that you are pitching. So, by using technical writing, you can present these random thoughts and ideas in a way that can be easily understood by the people who are not skilled at it. And that's why technical writing is so important because you pave the way for people who are not skilled at something to understand it. And that's what makes it so exciting, so passionate, so passion driven, and a very exciting profession to work with. And therefore I would really encourage all of you to just spare a little moment, spare a few moments of your time to actually acknowledge what technical writing is, how are we going to delve further into technical writing, and how can we proceed with it further. So, technical writing is often confused with academic writing, and this is something that actually threatens a lot of people who actually think that technical writing is writing research papers, which is not true. Technical writing can be segregated into six main categories according to me. So, this is my personal demarcation list. A number of people have different categories to demarcate technical writing into. Some of them have seven categories, some have five, some have eight. I personally have divided technical writing into six forms of writing. The first one that we are going to be discussing here in detail is the user manual. So, whenever you buy a new product, you always find a user manual that comes packed with the product itself. And although many of us don't really read it, we think we know so much about the product beforehand itself. However, a lot of work is actually put into curating those user manuals because those user manuals are created by people who are actually familiar with the who's and the what's and the entire structure of the product that is being sold. Howsoever, the product is being pitched for those people, for us who have no basic knowledge about the workings and about the goings on within the product. And that's what makes user manuals so very exciting to work with because it has been curated for people, curated for laymen who don't have prior experience with with the product that we are working on. Next up, we have white papers. So white papers are basically authoritative government regulated documents that could be written, that could be curated for any government firm, that could be curated for any private firm, for the government. And technical writing basically entails curating these white papers and making sure that you can actually correspond with the government's rules and regulations, with the government's policies, and so on. Next up, we have API documentations. So there are n number of APIs floating around the web, and it's often very integral for us to choose some of these APIs and use these APIs and incorporate them with our personal products and services. So how is a software developer going to integrate an unknown API with the service that he is developing? That could be done by using API documentations. Documentations are written by technical writers who have knowledge working with the API and who are able to instruct software developers in the jargon that they understand to incorporate and amalgamate their software driven operations with the APIs that they are pitching. Next up, we have press releases. As we all know, for any product or service that we want to go public, there are press releases to inform the media, to inform more number of people about the product being pitched. There are company documents for every company that you are going to work with ever. And next up, we have case studies. So case studies basically help to gain more information and gain more insights about a given problem statement, about a given problem solution, by creating a story out of it in a way that resonates more with the audiences, that resonates more with the speakers, and that resonates more with the people who are actually going to be using the product. For example, if you've ever studied or ever worked with Microsoft Azure, you would know that its official documentation, if you've ever been through it, contains a large number of case studies about Tailwind Traders, which is a fictitious company that is deciding to migrate over the Azure cloud. So, case studies basically help the users to connect more and relate more with the scenarios so that they are able to familiarize themselves with it. So, these were the different types of technical writings. And now we are going to be delving more into the scope for technical writers. So, as I said, there is tremendous scope for technical writers. It is a booming industry. There is immense scope, immense potential. It's just that many people don't know much about it. So, here are a few enumerated examples of where our technical writers needed, and whenever are we able to, wherever are we able to employ more technical writers and use them across firms and across the industries. So, first of all, we have documentation specialists. So, obviously, curating documentation is the need of the hour. You need multiple documentation specialists to curate the documentation for any given firm, for any given company, for any given API that a company is pitching. Next up, we have tech content writers who enable students to learn more about something, and who enable students or people who are not extremely skilled at something to gain more insights about a given technical subject. Next up, we have web writers who curate content that is posted especially over the web. You have policy writers who draft policies corresponding to the government's laws, rules, and regulations. You have manual curators who curate user manuals that could be able to enable users to learn more about some products. And you have public relations managers. So once technical writers achieve a certain level, they can actually start working as documentation managers, public relation managers, developer relations managers, and so on. This is how you can proceed from technical writing into developer relations and actually ensure product evangelism to a certain extent. That's really cool. So now, before we actually start creating technical content, it's extremely important for us to understand that, like every other subject that we are trying to learn, there are certain prerequisites for technical writing as well. Now, for example, if you are trying to learn a new programming language like maybe Python, so how do you start learning any new language? You start learning from the absolute basics. For example, I said that we are trying to learn Python right now. Let's just imagine that we're learning Python. So if you want to learn Python, first of all, you need to know how can you install Python on your system. Once you have Python installed on your system, you would try to know that, okay, I'm working on Python version 3.10. How is Python 3. How is Python 3 different from Python 2? Next, you are going to ask yourself, now that I know that I'm going to be working on Python 3, how can I print my first Python command? What is going to be my first Python program? Which obviously for most of us is hello world. So once you have printed hello world, you are going to proceed towards, Python variables, identifiers, keywords, literals, operators, how to take inputs, how to take outputs, how to print outputs, and so on. Once you are done with those, you proceed to conditional statements, if statements, else statements. Once you're done with those, you proceed to control statements like for loops and while loops. And so you get, this is how you basically proceed into learning something, how you proceed towards learning something. You first familiarize yourself with the very basic concepts, and then slowly you proceed to the more intermediary concepts, and finally you can advance to more advanced and more concrete concepts that will be able to, that you would be able to use once you are familiar with all the concepts from scratch. So, before you start writing anything, it's extremely mandatory for you to know what you are writing about. You can't write about something you have never really worked with in the past, and you've never really experimented with in the past. So content knowledge is the need of the hour. You can't write about something unless you know about it. Next up, it's very important for you to present your content in a way that the readers can understand it and resonate with it. This means that simply writing redundant lines of content, writing redundant lines of code is not going to make your content, extremely unique and extremely differentiable from the rest of the content available over the internet. You need to make your content more interesting and more lucid, so that people who don't have prior experience with the given topic can also relate to your content, and they are able to understand your content well. Once you are able to explain your content in an interesting way, you would be able to gather more readership towards your content, and this would help to establish your own content brand, your personal content brand. That's why explaining stuff in an easily understandable, in an easily digestible format is really important for technical writers. Next up, proper grammar and language proficiency. I can't stress on how important is it for technical writers to use grammar appropriately and to have proper command over the language that they are communicating in. Poor command over the language and poor command over the grammar of the language is a major turn off for the readers as well, because they look up to the writers who are actually trying to educate them, right? Therefore, it's really important for you to have proper command over the grammar as well as proper command over the language that you are communicating in, that you are teaching in. And there are various tools available on the internet that we shall be talking about if you are not so certain about the grammar that you are using, or about the language that you think you're proficient in. So grammar and language has been identified now. The next issue that we are going to be talking about is search engine optimization. Now, you have written excellent content. Once you have written content, you want a large number of people to actually read the content that you have written, right? So people are only going to look up to your content if they need to understand something, if they need to learn something that they don't already know. And we all know that the only place we look up to if we want to learn something new is definitely a search engine, mostly Google, or Bing for that matter. Anything, any search engine that you look up to in order to gain more information. So usually we get whatever we want in the first results page of the search engine itself, and usually 99% of the times we don't usually switch to the second or to the third pages of the web search that we are running. How do I make sure that my content is read? Well, the best way to ensure that the content that I have written is going to be read by and a substantial readership is by ensuring that my content, that the link to my content is appearing on the first page of the search engine's results, right? On the first search results page itself. Now, so as to ensure that my document, that my article is appearing on the first page of the search engine's results, I need to ensure that my article is search engine optimized. How do I ensure that my article is search engine optimized? By, there are a number of ways to actually ensure that your articles are SEO specified or search engine optimized. And one of the most common ways is by keyword stuffing. Now, what exactly is keyword stuffing? I would delve into that later on. But first, it's important for you to know what search engine optimization was. And I think I've explained it in an understandable way. Next up, visual aids and graphics. I personally cannot read an article for more than 5 minutes if it only has lines of text or lines of code, because text and code make your article fairly boring, and they don't really entice your attention to read more, and they don't really compel you to read more. What actually compel you to actually go on reading more are the visual aids, the images, and the graphics present in your articles. So it's very important for you to pick some pictures, or to curate some pictures that you think would be able to understand some concepts better to the audiences, and use those pictures, incorporate them in your articles so as to ensure better readership and so as to ensure that readers don't leave your articles in the middle itself. And finally, coming towards the final point, which is keeping it appropriate, knowing when to write what. Now, this I cannot stress on how important is it to keep your content appropriate. For example, if you are writing something, if you are creating documentation for a given company, for a given, let's just say, observability, ML observability platform, fine. So, first of all, you would have to explain the problems faced by the users while model monitoring, and while actually deploying the models to production. You would talk about what problems did the developers, did the DevOps specialists face when they were deploying their models to production. And then you would say that since it was actually very difficult to keep tabs on them, I developed a model monitoring platform. This is the model monitoring platform that I am going to be talking about. This is the MLOps platform that I am going to be pitching to you. And this is how you can use my MLOps platform in order to ensure that your content, that in order to ensure that your models are running well, and in order to ensure that the health of your models is being maintained properly. Now, you are pitching a problem, you're pitching a solution to people with a problem. If you make your content, if your content is structured in a way to annoy the readership, if you are constantly pitching and not paying enough attention to actually solving the problem posed to the users, why would anybody read your content? People would get annoyed by the sales pitching and they would leave your content and proceed towards some other firm. They might even leave the product that you are pitching, and they might choose other options or other results that are available to them. That is why it's extremely important for you to keep your content appropriate and understand what exactly is it that you are trying to communicate to the people. And also, it's really very important to understand the readership you are trying to communicate with. For example, if you're writing something about Python, if you're writing something about Python data structures, you are not going to be pitching Python to your audiences, right? You are simply teaching people about Python. You are not saying Python is such an amazing programming language, always use Python. You are just explaining Python data structures to an audience who doesn't know about it, right? And that is why it's extremely vital for technical writers to keep the content and to keep the pitching limitized, as well as to keep the content to the point and precise. So I hope I was clear when I was explaining the prerequisites for technical writing. uh, Now, let's just proceed to the technical writer's roadmap. So, I have basically chunked down the entire process of working as a technical content writer here for you, so that you understand how can you actually proceed into the profession and how can you delve deeper into the profession. Okay, so are there any questions as of now? If there are any questions, I will be ready to take them up right now. Okay, so let's just proceed further into the presentation itself. Now, the first step is using blogging as infrastructure. You are a writer. Your only instrument and your only weapon is your command over the words. Fine. You need to blog. You need to express your opinions as regularly as possible. And you need to make sure that people are reading them, and need to make sure that people are liking what you are pitching to them, that they are liking what you are selling to them. Even if you're not actually selling a product, you are selling your ideas, and you need to make sure that the people are actually respecting and appreciating what you are selling and they are ready to buy it. Now, you are ready to blog. It's really important for you to start blogging first. You can start blogging on an individual platform. You can start blogging with a publication like Voice of Code. So, it's really important for you to actually start creating a personal profile for yourself when you start technical writing. Now, what am I going to write about? It depends upon you. You can write about anything that you specialize in. You can write about anything that you are familiar with. But always remember, like I said, content knowledge is extremely important for a technical writer. Don't write about things you are unfamiliar with or you are not cognizant about. Now, whatever you are writing should have umpteen quantity as well as quality, and it should be structured in a way to pique the curiosity of the reader. This means That by quantity I don't mean that you actually literally stuff it with a lot of information so that it becomes very difficult for the reader to actually digest whatever is it that you have written. I mean that you need to keep your content consistent. You need to keep posting content regularly, at least 2 times a week, if you're trying to make a personal brand for yourself. And keep the quality optimized. Make sure that you are not compromising on the quality of your article just for the sake of quantity, because down the line it is only going to be your quality that people are going to appreciate. Next up, as I said, keep it consistent. Work state of the art. It's extremely important for you to work in a particular niche and to keep your content consistent, keep it updated, because obsolete content is going to be discarded very soon, and people don't really, show much interest towards content that is old. People want fresh information, they want information that is hot at the given moment. And in order to ensure that, it's extremely mandatory for all of us as technical writers to keep the content coming, and to keep good quality content coming. Not just content, the quality of the content should not be compromised with. Next up, choose your content's niche. Now, this is extremely important for all of us. In fact, I think all of these points are extremely important for all of us. Don't just write about whatever comes to your mind. Choose a given niche, choose a given domain. Whether you want to write content related to machine learning, whether you want to write content related to application development, whether you want to write content pertaining to, let's just say, time series analysis. So choose a niche for your content, and then start curating content around the niche, around the contours of the niche that you have chosen. This is extremely mandatory, because you can't just write random content and expect people to just choose your website or choose your blog to get access to that content, because you can't just curate all the content in the world. But you can't curate all the content in the world, but it's extremely important for you to realize that you can create all the content that is going to be required by the reader at a given time. And just remember this particular statement, that you can create content to satisfy their needs, to satiate their readership needs at a given moment. Make sure that every article you write contains complete information about the given topic, and that you don't lead them to clickbaits and present information that you are actually not providing with. That's what's really important for technical writers as well. Choose a given niche that you are interested in, and curate content along the niche only. Don't deviate from the niche that you have chosen. Now, once you have started curating that niche, it's important for you to realize that if you start creating regular content around that niche, people will start knowing you for that domain. You would be recognized as a specialist in that given domain, and that is how you can curate your personal brand. For example, if you write a lot of articles about deep learning would become your own brand. Do something, write something about deep learning that the other people who write about deep learning have not done so far. That's how you can maintain the uniqueness of your content, and make sure that more number of people actually visit your blogs, more number of people that are actually able to benefit from your blogs. Because a lot of people write about deep learning, right? Choose a niche. Also, if you can choose a niche within deep learning, for example, let's say generative adversarial networks. If you choose a niche like that, like generative adversarial networks, or GANs as they are commonly called, if you are familiar with deep learning, if you choose something like that, your readership will become extremely localized, and those people who are interested in that particular field will only resort to your articles in order to gather information about GANs, because they know that no other person is specializing in GANs, and no other technical writer is going to be providing them the information that you are going to be providing. And that is how you have created your own GAN brand, a brand for the generative adversarial networks that you are using. Now, next up, you are going to use social media to every possible extent in order to pitch the content that you are creating. Use social media, use LinkedIn, use Twitter, use Facebook, use Instagram to every possible extent in order to draw more traffic towards your blogs, in order to draw more readership towards your blogs, in order to ensure that people are actually benefiting from the content that you are curating. Take regular feedbacks from your readers. Ask them what do they want from you, what do they expect from your articles, and then try to curate your content along those lines. Next up, like I said, immersive marketing. Use social media to every possible extent. Try to partner with collaborators. Try to collaborate with YouTube content creators who also specialize in that field, so that they're able to pitch your content, so that they're able to advertise your content and market with them. Try to come up with a solution along with them, and that solution is what's that's going to take your brand to a whole new level. Like I said, the final step in the technical writer's roadmap is to devise a novel solution that has not been developed before. And that's how you've actually created your own personal ideology. And that is what you're going to sell to the audience. This time, not for free, not in return for their ideas, this time in return for monetary help. And that is how you are going to advance in, as a technical writer. So I hope the technical writer's roadmap was absolutely clear to you. I think there's a question in the chat box by Abhigya. So Sanya, what according to you is the best place for a beginner to start with technical writing? And that's actually an amazing question to be asked. And I actually think that whenever you are actually starting with technical writing, the best place to start is by blogging. Curate your own blogs, like I said, along a given niche, not about just any random tech stack that you familiarize yourself, but about a given niche, about a given domain, and try to come up with regular content along that domain. And once you have created a writing portfolio for yourself, you can actually start working as a freelancer. Multiple companies would approach you for freelancing, and you can actually start expanding your demesne as a technical writer. So like I said, the first step towards technical writing should be via blogging. Now, you know that you have to blog, but how exactly are you going to blog? How exactly are you going to ensure that people are liking the content that you are creating? So far I have come up with six published works. I have six published editorial works that have been published in the past, and I have edited a lot of content in the past as well. So let's just start by illustrating to you how to create catchy content. So, first of all, when you're writing an article, it's extremely mandatory for you to ensure that you start with a catchy title and a coherent subtitle, obviously. Now, your title should be something that draws the attention of the audiences instantly, and so that you're able to draw more traffic towards it. Next up, the header image needs to be eye catchy and attractive. Obviously, these things come without saying. You need to make sure that your article looks catchy, it is formatted in a way that people find catchy, that people find to be catchy and find to be attractive and easily digestible. So use lots of images in your articles, use lots of formatting in your articles in order to make sure that they could be read easily, to make sure that they're legible to the audiences. Start with an interesting introduction to the topic and create a context that would provide readers with background information about the article. Obviously, you start writing about something by giving a brief introduction to whatever you're writing about, and slowly and gradually, you can proceed to the problems that are faced by the users in their daily lives, and then you can start by curating the solution. So, everything should be in a step by step process. And like I always say, your content should be in the form of dominoes. So, every time you tip a given domino, the remaining dominoes should also fall in line. This means that your content should be interrelated, they should be correlated with each other, and that your content should not be abrupt and falling out of place. Everything should be structured very semantically as you proceed towards your content. Now, the article must be well formatted to enhance readability. Obviously, as I said, your facing should be good, whether it's bold faced or italicized. Facing should be maintained throughout the article. The theme should be maintained throughout the article. Images should be placed at appropriate places, at least at the scroll depths. I personally think that at every scroll depth, an image should be inserted definitely. Make it a point to obviously insert images at every scroll depth possible, because after every scroll, people usually expect to get a break from the reading and to get a break from the content, because it can get monotonous after a while. So images help to break that monotony and to ensure that you are actually able to focus more on the content, and by refreshing your eyes a little bit, you re-energize yourself again. Now, all the paragraphs of the body must contain detailed analysis and statistics. People won't believe you unless you give them numbers. I'm saying this for a fact. So you need to give them statistics, you need to give them thorough, concrete analysis containing numbers, so that people actually believe in what you're selling. Now, to optimize articles for search engine rankings, use an SEO tool to find keywords. Yes, I was talking about keyword stuffing. So, keyword stuffing is one of the major SEO technologies that is being used these days by content creators and by content marketers in order to pitch their content and in order to make sure that they appear on the first page of your search results for the search engine. Now, keywords are basically words that are searched regularly by the audiences, and these words are used to derive a number of uh, audience traffic towards your articles. So, if you make sure that you stuff a given word in an article a given number of times, for example, 10 times or 12 times, and if that word is SEO optimized, this means it's a keyword. This means that it's a word that has been asked regularly by the audience, that has been searched regularly by the audiences, then the traffic your blog gets would be increased manifold. So, obviously, if you're just going to randomly stuff a given word in a sentence, it could break the quality and the integrity of your article. It could also appear to be plagiarized. It could also appear to be grammatically incorrect. And this is what's going to, actually demean the quality of your content. So while search engine optimization is really important, you must always make sure that it does not compromise on the quality of the content that you are pitching. And finally, keeping in mind the fact that general grammatical rules and rules of the living language structure concerned are followed. Obviously, like I said, search engine optimization should not trifle with the grammatical structure of the content that you are creating. So I hope this much was understandable and comprehensive for everyone. Let's just proceed to the next slide. Now, here are some tools that you can use to make sure that your content is up to the mark, to make sure that your content's grammar and to make sure that your content's individuality is intact. Use Grammarly and Ginger for grammar checking. If you are unfamiliar with Grammarly or Ginger, you can install their web extensions first and then try them out. They definitely help you to check out some punctuation errors that might crop up, or they might also help you to check some synonyms or some random grammatical errors that may crop up in your articles. Make sure that you use them, because I think it's extremely difficult for any of us to be absolutely flawless in our writing. Make it a point to use a tool like Grammarly or Ginger when you are actually pitching your content. Next up, do not forget to use a plagiarism checker, because if your article is over 20% plagiarized, it is not considered to be good. It's not considered to be true to the spirit of writing, because plagiarized articles demean the individuality of not just your own article but also the article of the person whose article was plagiarized by you. Make it a point to ignore to check plagiarism in your articles, and in order to ensure that your articles are original. Next up, you can use Quillbot. Quillbot is a very interesting tool that's used for paraphrasing. If, for example, you do encounter any random plagiarism, any plagiarized error in your document, you can paraphrase the error using a tool like Quillbot, which ensures that plagiarism is reduced. And finally, you can use a tool like Word Tracker for search engine optimization. Now, Word Tracker is simply going to return a list of keywords, and it's now your responsibility to stuff your document with keywords whenever needed in order to make sure that your document is search engine optimized. Now, where can I start writing? Like I said, it's extremely important for all of us as technical writers to break in the career, to break in the profession as bloggers. So there are various places where you can actually start blogging. You can start blogging on Hashnode. You can start blogging on dev.to. So these actually help to create personalized portfolios for yourself, where you can start creating your brand from scratch. However, the problem with Hashnode or dev.to is that you'll have to gather your traffic, you'll have to gather audiences to your purpose on your own. However, if you start working with a publication, for example, a publication like Voice of Code for that matter, you don't have to worry about gathering traffic towards your articles, because we have dedicated teams that will be responsible for pitching your articles, that will be responsible for promoting your articles, and that will be responsible for creating digital content, creating images, and for helping you out in the entire writing process. So I would definitely encourage all of you to start contributing articles to publications like Voice of Code, where you get a platform to actually showcase your writing portfolios, to showcase your hand at writing, and to present to the world what you can do with the pen. So I'm up for questions. If there are any questions, please do let me know now. I would be more than happy to help you out.
So awesome session, Sanya. It was really enjoyable. Let me close your slide as well.
Yeah,
Uh, to begin with, I especially loved your Lego example at the beginning,
thank you.
and everyone is also saying they loved your session at the chat with a lot of lovely messages. Uh, your presentation, I actually noticed that the technical writing is a really deep subject. I wasn't considering it, like I didn't know it was like that deep, that it had like a lot of things you need to manage to write like a successful writing. And also thanks for your roadmap that you provided. I think it's really useful for all the people who want to get involved with technical writing. I also wanted to ask you about the tools, but you also mentioned about the tools, and it was great. I have some questions I wanted to ask to you about like the technical writing. So,
Sure, sure.
uh, and if anyone has any questions as well, we can see them in the chat while I ask some questions. You can ask your questions as well. So the first question I wanted to ask while listening to your presentation is that you mentioned that a lot of people don't know like the power of technical writing. Technical writing is a lot less common to compare to like video production or something like that. Why do you think it might be like that? Why do you think, like, is it intimidating? Do people get like intimidated by it?
I think that the answer to this given question is the same as the answer to the question as to why do people like watching movies more than reading books. So I think it is basically born out of the fact that people don't like exerting much effort into the things that they do. Everybody wants an easygoing lifestyle, so people love watching things. They love visual aids, they love videos. Whereas it's actually, it's not as easy to read something and to understand stuff than it is to actually learn through videos or through moving instructions or through anything that is more lively and energized. So that's why I think that technical writing is something that people don't often realize the importance of, or consider to be a little tough or a little monotonous, because it's wordy, and because monotony tends to set in if the articles are not curated in the best way possible. But if you think the article is written in an acceptable way, if the article is written in an interesting way, I personally think that technical write ups are the most interesting pieces of write ups ever.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So we have some questions from the chat. The first question is, what's like working officially in NumPy documents? Can you explain the editorial pipeline for the documentation?
Yeah, sure. So working at NumPy is absolutely amazing, and I can't be more thankful to the team that thought that I was worthy of this position. So I'm currently working with the group of researchers at University of California at Berkeley, who actually helped to curate NumPy, the official Python library. And what I'm actually doing is that I take a look at the GitHub repositories, and I take a look at the content which I feel is not satisfactory up to my demands. And then I start drafting the content according to the contours that they have given to me, which is basically like, there are a number of functions of NumPy, like a number of solutions that NumPy provides. So you need to basically take a look at the code that is being given to you, and you need to improve on how can you explain the code that is being given to you, so that you're able to tell the audiences that if you're facing this given problem in your code, this is how you can fix it, somewhat like Stack Overflow. So that's what I do at NumPy. I take a look at the official documentation, I try to improve it, try to make it more understandable and more legible for the audiences. And working with NumPy is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I think well written documentation comes in really handy when you're like learning something new, learning a new technology or something like that.
Yeah.
So thanks for your service as well. We have another question. Uh, Great session, Sanya. Just had one question. How can I connect with organizations that need a technical writer?
That's an excellent question. So, usually, I have never connected a, with an organization myself because they usually send me requests on their own. But in case you want to connect with an organization, networking is extremely important. You network with more number of people. You use LinkedIn to expand your networking. You try to connect with people. You try to ask them that I'm interested in this given field. How can I be of service to you? And once they are interested in your portfolio, once you have created a portfolio for yourself, they may take interest in you and they may contact you for further roles and responsibilities. But first, it's extremely important for you to create a writing portfolio, and in order to have at least 10 to 15 articles that you can show to them, in order to prove that you are a technical writer and in order to prove that you have experience in a given field.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for your answers. I also want to ask another question myself. So, being someone also who is highly involved with like software development as well. So, what sort of technical contents do you think are suitable or like eye catching for outside people on the internet for a student who is involved with tech?
Yeah. So, as for a student who's interested in tech, most of the technical content that I usually curate is about documentations itself, about products and different APIs, and how can you incorporate them with the services that you are using. For example, I'm giving you an example. If you've ever worked with Power Apps, so you can integrate Power Apps with a number of different APIs. For example, you can integrate Power Apps with the Custom Vision API. Now, a lot of people don't know how they can actually integrate Custom Vision, which is a service offered to you by Microsoft Azure, to Power Apps. We need proper documentation in order to ensure that this is how you can create your own custom connector, and this is how you can connect your API, the respective API, to your Power application. So for everything that needs to be, I think there needs to be appropriate documentation, and that is where technical writers step up. They help you how to link your persisting APIs with the services that you are creating, with the services that software developers are creating, in order to come up with more novel solutions.
Yeah. That also makes a lot of sense. I see a lot of people like talking about their experiences on like some software, but I think you mentioned like Power Apps. I was lately working with web apps in Azure, and was struggling with a deployment, and I couldn't find
Yeah,
any like documentation, any blogs or
documentation
something
about
like
it.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was I managed to figure it out, but if someone like wrote a documentation about their experiences in like
exactly.
deploying a specific application, it would be really useful to me, and I would really love to read that application text as well. The last question for me, I actually want to ask two questions. Last two questions for
Yeah.
myself. Um, did you experience any like burnout in technical writing? And if you did, how did you overcome it?
Like a professional burnout, or like mostly like exhaustion or something of the sort?
Kind of like a like professional burnout. I think burnout happens like in every industry. But did you like specifically experience like I'm really done with technical writing and I don't want to write anything at the moment or something like that? And if you did,
uh
how did you overcome it if you like, ever experience it?
So there was a time when I was freelancing with three different companies at the same time, and all of them had very aligned deadlines. So if the deadline for one company was on Wednesday, the deadline was for the other company was on Thursday, and the deadline for the third company was on Friday. So all of these deadlines were kind of very close to each other, and that's what really made stuff very tough. And obviously I was very done to death with it at a given time. But slowly, when my vacations got over, vacations got over, I realized that I had to focus more on my classes. So I stopped working with one of those agencies on my own because it was getting a little too exhausting at a given time. And I was not able to focus on my classes. So I stopped working with them.
Oh, is it something on my bed? And uh, I think Sanya got disconnected. Can someone write in the chat to notify if the problem is about me? Ah, okay. Um, I was really looking forward to the end of the answer, but I kind of like we got the answer to the question. I think a lot of people experience burnout. I especially experienced it myself many times, and it's important to find a way to like find a way out uh, of the burnout thingy. Um, Sanya had a little internet connection problem. Maybe she might join, but I asked all the questions I wanted to ask, and it was a really informative session for me too, for me as well. Um, I especially wanted to get into technical writing since I have been struggling with technical writing a lot. Actually, I was experiencing like burnout. I wanted to write something and I couldn't finish it. I always loved like producing videos, producing educational videos, but I never could get into technical writing. I lately released a blog post, Q&A blog post at Postman about a solution I developed for them, and it was like my first big technical writing um, post, and it was actually really fun writing that, and I would love to have like a portfolio of texts or documentations I've made over the years, and because I think it can be really useful to have like a technical documentation skills and have them if I join ever go into like academia, if I ever pursue that field, I think it would be really useful to have technical writing skills as well. But Sanya is back. Don't worry, Sanya. I talked while you were gone, so I tried not to keep the audience bored. Did you go again?
Cool,
Okay.
cool, 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 cool. So where were we?
You were like talking about um, your experience with agency, and you decided to focus on your school, and that's where we lost you.
Yeah, yeah,
We kind of
yeah.
actually got
So that's just what I was talking about. That you shouldn't have more than, yeah. So you shouldn't like focus on more than two things at the same time, more than one thing at the same time for that matter, because it kind of gets too exhausting at a given time. And that's what makes you get done to death with things. So maybe you shouldn't overexert yourself and should not exhaust yourself with a given tech stack at a given time. You should try experimenting out with different things, try to learn more, and then once you are familiar with more concepts, you can try your hand at them and then start writing about them too. So
yeah, I probably think that would be the reason. I experienced a lot of burnout as well, not in like technical writing, but in other areas as well. And I
yeah,
think
definitely.
it's connected to like handling a lot of things at once, and it's kind
Yeah,
of it can be like a problematic as well. I think I do a lot of like video production instead of like technical writing. I really want to get into technical writing as well, so this session was really important for me and really beneficial for me as well. Uh, but as I've said, I do a lot of like video production. Uh, I stream, I record videos, technical videos, and I think technical writing and video production has like similarities, but the main difference
yeah,
is kind of like I see technical writing as like a marathon and video production as like a race. since like I
Why exactly?
from my experience, like I always I always prepare before my videos. I prepare like the script. I prepare what I want to talk about. Just like in technical writing, where you need like prerequisites and you prepare what you're going to write. You look
Yeah,
for some references and etc. So it's the same,
yeah,
but I do it in like one sitting. If I produce something, like I do like sit here for like an hour or 30 minutes or something like that and record the video. But in like technical writing, it I think it's really common to like write something a day, maybe return it to another day and take a break, return to the document
yeah,
another
yeah,
day.
yeah.
etc.
Yeah, obviously definitely you can take breaks in between, because you definitely need time to energize yourself again, because it kind of gets a little monotonous when you're working with it for a long span of time. So taking breaks is definitely really important.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, these were actually all the questions I especially wanted to ask. We had some awesome questions as well from the chat that I couldn't
Yeah,
think of, like connecting with organizations. But I think it's a great question. I think a lot of even experienced technical writers can like struggle when like finding organizations, even though like you need to have a social presence. So as you said, they
yeah,
find you, they contact you, and yeah.
yeah.
So we have another question. So let's take this question as well. So Microsoft uh, ambassadors are publishing contents on Educator Developer blog and Microsoft Learn modules. Can you reflect on some insights about such amazing opportunities?
Yeah, so just like Microsoft Learn modules are often being updated, a number of people can actually, especially Microsoft Learn student ambassadors, can contribute to the Learn content and in order to enrich their qualities as well. Also, there are a number of places, for example, Google Season of Docs. Google Season of Docs is also a very interesting opportunity, especially for technical writers, wherein they can connect with organizations, and in case the organization is actually looking for technical writers, it can contact them directly and recruit them to their organizations. If they are able to make interesting PRs to the documentation of the organization concerned, then they are also paid in paid handsomely if they are able to contribute towards the documentation. So I think Google Season of Docs is an amazing front for technical writers to contribute to uh, open source content, open source technical content.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of like follow the same method like in Google Summer of Code, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But
It's very similar to Google
as
Summer
we
of Code.
talked about, like I don't hear Google Season of Docs a lot, and I like hear
Yeah, yeah,
since like the document technical writing is kind of like underrated, as you mentioned.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really underrated.
We have another question. So, what are your favorite websites of articles for developing an aptitude for technical content development?
Websites of articles for developing an aptitude for technical content development. I think that the more technical content you read, the more you are able to familiarize yourself. So I think Voice of Code is an amazing platform where you can actually learn how to develop content from scratch. We have a very good general guideline document which will really guide you through the process of creating, enriching, and more quality content for the readership. Also, I believe that if you read more content by towards data science, which is a very famous blog, then you would be able to gather more insights about technical writing. You would be able to gather more insights about how the documents are actually written. Moreover, you can check out blogs by Scalar Topics, which is also an educational and ed tech venture for that matter, and which educates students on technical content, mostly programming languages like Python and C++, SQL, JavaScript. So it's basically a really good platform when you want to learn more technical content, and even if you want to learn about how you can write more technical content, it's the best platform because you actually see how other people are writing, and you can try to incorporate their writing styles with your own.
Awesome. So yeah, thank you for your amazing answers, Sanya. Thank you all, everyone, for their questions. And I think this was a really informative session. It was one of the most informative sessions like I've been to, because I since I want to get into technical writing as well. And yeah, I hope everyone had fun as we had fun. And yeah, if you want to contribute to Voice of Code, feel free to follow the link down in the below. I commented it if you want to contribute to Voice of Code. And yeah, uh, I'm looking forward to next webinars. I would love to host like new webinars consisting of technical writing as well. This is our first webinar, and yeah, I hope everyone had fun. Sanya, you want to add something at the end?
No, I'm good. It was an amazing session. Thank you. I'm really thankful to Chetan for actually being so engaging throughout the session. And I'm really thankful to all the audiences for being so supportive and for being so interactive throughout. So thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, we had an awesome audience. Thank you everyone for
Yeah.
attending. So yeah, I guess we can end the broadcast right now.
Yeah.
Goodbye everyone.